I've been using the complete system for so long at this point. Like, at least an entire day. And there's a number of things that I found need optimizing, straight up fixing, or some other third thing. The primary build of this video is going to be replacing the current dust barrel cart with a scissor lifting cart, and I'll speak to why a bit more later on. But the main subject of this video will be to talk about some of the design decisions, how it's performing, and some glamour shots. First thing that I fixed was the hole that I had also made in the cap. There needed to be some kind of access panel that I could reach into the baffle quickly in order to resolve small issues or blockages. The design is directly inspired by fistulated cows, so look that up if you want to have the same nightmares I do. The second was a simple modification and reprint of the ceiling adapter to add in a 45-degree curve. It's a lot easier to hook up to now, as well as keeping the hose at a nicer shape when at rest. And I've since reprinted a few components here and there, with a bit more bulk and strength in the print settings. A few were broken or just not an optimal profile for the end product, so I revisited their designs. So let's talk design. The driving force for doing a custom setup was size, shape, and quality. In this garage shop, every square foot is a battle, and the jet dust collector I bought came with a huge footprint. It also came with a fabric bag filter and a plastic bag for collection. So I got to work thinking of ways to reduce that footprint, while also benefiting from a stationary collector and using a large drum that someone gave me in a lumber deal. The end result was to use a fine baffle with a few 45-degree offset mounts to minimize overall space, while also not constricting airflow around sharp bends. The cart looks like that because, it's neat. I have some fairly dense, dry, and consistent construction lumber that I'll be performing these tests on. Each pair of clips should include pretty much the same cuts, using the same tool, on very similar wood, with the system off then on. And I'll be using one of the most intricate tools to check for changes in dust flow: the human eye. First up we have the miter saw. I've yet to model and print out the dust port for this because it's a pretty complicated shape, so I guess it's going to be kind of like a ambient dust grab. To be honest, I can't really tell much of a difference, but it does appear to me that the particles floating near the saw are less dense. A duct to direct and focus the airflow is going to be necessary. I mostly use zero clearance inserts, so we'll see how easy it is to tell here. Put the screws to me. Standing at that table saw, I would have said that the dust was better with the vacuum on without a doubt. At least I saw the dust collector pulling in plenty. Can't say I see a big difference from here. Let's check another angle. Okay, this one seems pretty definitive to me. The wood chips themselves appear smaller, and the table looks cleaner during and after the cut. Let's try it with the planer. I can't believe I just made a dust collector and I am purposefully slinging dust everywhere for a bit. The bandsaw is the worst about creating a lot of fine dust and sending it everywhere, so I'm excited to see that improved. Plus, I have a bad habit of not checking how full the bandsaw is. Yeah, it seems like a toss-up. I do remember seeing plenty of dust going into the collector, but really no noticeable difference on the work surface. I noticed the major fix for the bandsaw later on. It had much less to do with dust on the tabletop, and a lot more to do with dust being removed from the bandsaw body and preventing it from exiting during the band's upswing. Alright, let's see what the drill press looks like. I plan to make a posable articulated hose for this, but for now it's the unfinished magnetized mount. No difference. Unless... I just did a few cuts for a future project using a very red wood. It inadvertently helped reveal some locations where there's air escaping, which is nice for fixing. But regardless of immediate dust cleanliness benefits, it made very clear just how much fine dust is being taken care of now. Alright, let's talk about the cart. I do like it. It's really visually interesting. And the way that it was designed to function, it does a really good job. I think the real issue was the use case. This setup requires half the cart to be kind of in its final position, and then the lifting mechanism is engaged to lift the other half. It's kind of frustrating to use, and I'm sure it's not going to get any better as the barrel gets fuller. So rethinking from the perspective of what I actually need instead of what I want, a scissor lift is going to be perfect. I've seen a couple great designs for wood-based scissor lifts online, so I'll be directly ripping off those ideas. But like the cheapest interpretation. Now that the actual scissor arms are made, there's just a couple of brackets left, and I'll use a few 3D prints just to shortcut to the end. The static hinges are comprised of 1/4-inch hardware, the connection between the arms is 3/8, and the driving section with the most axial load is a 3/4-inch coarse-threaded rod. I had a 5/8-inch dowel laying around for some of the moving pieces. That's probably good enough, right? I roughly measured out everything to fit under the previous cart, both as a bit of a guard and also my being lazy. Now it's time to bust out the precision tools. Speaking of axial load, in order to prevent damage to the cart or binding around the entry point, I needed to use a thrust bearing or something similar. But instead of buying one thrust bearing for $6, what if I got as many as I could ever want for $6? It's difficult to see, but these BBs are captured in the ring, but free enough moving that the bearing performs pretty well. This might have broken the first races, which is why they're black in the other club. But they work! Each of the necessary parts have been made, and assembly for the lifting mechanism begins. I was pretty generous with my assumptions of material strength, so you might notice some parts changing or disappearing entirely. This piece is a small, we'll call it a guide, and a place for the threaded rod to push against that is replaceable and a bit more durable than plywood. No comment. Wait a second. These used to be straight. Alright, one more go. I'm thinking this is going to be a lot easier with a drum that isn't 2/3 full. Let's do a little cleanup from when the collector was out of commission. All the seals are good, suction is nice, and I can't foresee any of the same old issues cropping back up, at least not immediately. 24 hours on from final placement, and it seems none of the components have given up the ghost. I'll have to keep an eye on it, but thus far, it is a marked improvement over the old cart. This dust collector sucks. There, I did the joke.